Hey everybody, it's Britt Hartley, atheist spiritual director at No Nonsense Spirituality, and today we're going to be talking about existential loneliness. And the reason that I want to talk about this is sometimes your existential crisis is hard not just because of what you're going through, but because you have to go through it alone. And so we're going to be digging into that. So existential loneliness is one of our 4 existential fears that I talk about a lot from Irvin Yalom, who is an existential psychiatrist. And I've done death and I've done meaninglessness. I haven't done fear of freedom yet. I'll do that next week. And so this week we're going to do existential loneliness. So death is just the awareness that we will die and we're going to have to face death. Fear of freedom is that fear that we are the authors of our own lives with no external structure to guarantee meaning that you really can F up your life, or you are in charge of your life. Isolation means that we are fundamentally alone in our subjectivity, and meaninglessness, that we're in a universe without inherent meaning, that we must create our own meaning. And so those 4 existential fears are kind of always brewing on our subconscious, and it's the reason that we create things like religions in order to deal with these fears. So we're going to really dig into the center of this existential loneliness. So before we can do that, I want to talk about 9 kinds of loneliness, just super briefly, and how that differs from kind of the ultimate boss, which is existential loneliness. So first, let's differentiate other kinds of loneliness. So there's emotional loneliness, which is just a lack of deep emotional connection or intimacy. That's the feeling that I have people around me, but nobody really sees me. I'm not connected to anything. There's social loneliness. I don't have enough friends or people to do life with. You don't have any kind of belonging. You're not in any shared spaces. The tool for that would be like community seeking, joining spaces with shared values, even digitally. There's new phase loneliness, which is I'm becoming someone new and no one in my life gets it. This is a feeling that you get when you have transformation or growth that leaves you isolated. And it's the loneliness that you feel when you're in between worlds. And so for that, you try and find transitional mirrors, coaches, books, online creators who have gone through that transition before and can help give you some context for what you're going through now. There's relational loss loneliness, that someone I loved is gone and now the world feels dimmer and I'm never going to be the same. It's grief, it's aching absence, it's this ghost presence. For that, we use things like rituals of remembrance, memory boxes, letters, how you want to keep that person alive in the world. And that work can help you stay connected to someone that you really loved that you've lost. There's time dislocation loneliness, which is I miss a version of me or I miss a version of my life that no longer exists. For this, there's like nostalgia or regret or disconnection. This can happen, for example, if you had a life as an athlete and then you get injured and now that version of you is dead. And so you'll get a kind of loneliness because you're no longer that person and you haven't integrated that yet. So the tool for that would be like integrative reflection, inner child work, life review, honoring your past selves, and then moving into possibilities for new selves. And so there's a lot of integration work that has to happen there. There's modern loneliness, which a lot of us just feel in general, which is I'm always connected, I'm always plugged in with my phone, but I feel more alone than ever. And so for that, we have to have tech boundaries, real life interactions, intentional presence, quality over quantity, less scrolling, more in-person connection. There's spiritual loneliness. I don't know what to believe anymore, or God has left me. I don't have anyone to talk to about that. There's a disorientation that can happen with deconstruction or loss of shared meaning or loss of God or loss of spirituality. And for that, we have to, explore personal spirituality, secular forms of spirituality, mysticism, nature, awe practices, contemplation practices to try and find your spiritual connection in relationship to, without abandoning whatever your loss or change of faith was. I talk about that a lot in other places. And then last one that we're differentiating here is identity loneliness, which is there's no one like me in this room. So that's, marginalization, lack of cultural or gender resonance. And for that, there's support groups or creators or books that better reflect you. And your purpose in digging into those spaces is to realize that you're not too much, you're just underrepresented in some of these rooms. And we need to find some of these rooms so that you can really reclaim your identity when you feel like there's no mirrors in the rooms that you're in for you to be able to work on that. So those are different kinds of loneliness. We can talk about those. I'm not really an expert on any of those subjects, but what we really want to dig into, which I think is the final boss, because I think I can deal with most of these kinds of loneliness, and I've experienced the majority of the ones that I just listed. But the final boss in this battle of fighting our own loneliness is existential loneliness. And this feeling is that no one else can truly experience life or death for me. It's this experience of aloneness at the core of your being, that no one really knows what it's like to be you. You're in a room full of people. Even the reason that this is so hard is that you can be in a room full of people who care about you, and you realize that no one will ever fully know what it's like to be you. No God, no person, no parent, no soulmate will ever really know what it's like to be you. You will die alone, no matter how many people you have around you. You will die alone, and the way that you see the world and the way that you experience the world is so unique to you, it will die with you. That's existential loneliness. And so sometimes, like I said earlier, the hardest part of existential crisis is not what you're going through, but having to go through it alone. There's a difference between being in prison and being able to be in Gen Pop and being in prison in isolation. So for me personally, what this looked like was when I was kind of spent my time in the deepest part of the void, total nihilism, no meaning to live, suicidal ideation. I can't tell anyone about it because I don't want to drag someone into the void. Like if I really cared, like if someone I really cared about wanted to sit down with me for 8 hours while they listened to my thoughts, where I destroyed their religion and their God and their sense of self and their free will and their belief in soulmates and their patterns and whatever, and I destroyed it all, I wouldn't even want to do that because I think they're happier in their delusional story. So it's this feeling that I hear from so many nihilists that I meet with who say, I learned too much. I see things that I never should have seen. Now I can't be in relationships with other people. And I don't even want them to know these things about reality because they're happier without that knowledge. And when we hit that part of nihilism, we can see either suicide ideation, or slow suicide, which is just lots of numbing behaviors in order to cope with the combination of there being no meaning and purpose, and also that there's no one to even talk to about it. And even further than that, we don't even want to talk to people about it because you almost want to protect them from these harsh realities that they don't know about yet, because maybe they're happier in their delusion or story. So it's the combination of no meaning and purpose, not talking to anyone about it, and not even being able to talk to anyone about it because you don't even want them to be where you are. And that is a place, I do not wish that place on my worst enemy. That is a place that was very difficult for me to survive. And research confirms that existential loneliness really is qualitatively different from other kinds of loneliness that we talked about. It's less about lack of connection. It's less about, how many friends do you have? And it's more about a sense of ontological separateness, that no one, not even God or any other person, will ever know what it's like to be you. No one will see the world the way that you do. No one will be able to tell you that they're proud of you, because no one will ever really see the battles that you go through, or the decisions that you've had to make, or the things that you've had to endure, even when you're in a room of people you care about and who care about you. So we find that this kind of loneliness often emerges in crisis, when you're facing death or serious illness or trauma, loss of religion, loss of beliefs, loss of anchors in some kind of way. And it tends to happen when you're young or you're old, but not as much in the middle from the data. So older adults often experience existential loneliness because they start to lose their spouses, their friends, their meaning and purpose, their job, their health, and then they start to confront, what do I do now? What is the purpose of life? Maybe they have some regrets, and it can just be this shadow in the room all of the time of existential loneliness and death that's just kind of hanging around that they don't have tools for. And then paradoxically, existential loneliness is also common in younger people because they don't have an identity formation. There's a loss of religious frameworks. They don't have a community. They're they're online a lot, so they are hyper connected online, which then can mask deeper disconnection. And so existential therapists will note that there's a rise in meaning voids, even among those who really seem online that they're very socially connected. So in middle age, we don't see it quite as much because there's usually some family, maybe you're raising some children, so there's people you're around, maybe you're at the height of your career. So there's just a lot going on socially in midlife that can sometimes stave off the pressure of existential loneliness, but not for everyone. Like for me, it really did hit in middle age in rooms of people that cared about me because of my nihilism and my lack of tools to deal with it and my loss of community that came with my loss of faith. So for me, my existential crisis was during a time when I did have people around me that cared about me, but I couldn't connect with them and I couldn't tell them what was happening to me. And I didn't even really want to because I didn't want to drag them into that space. And so I just suffered alone, which is really, really, really bad for you, and not something I would recommend to anyone. So here are 6 tools that help with the root of loneliness, the final boss of loneliness, which is existential loneliness. And it is often considered the hardest one because it can hit you even when you have good relationships with people, even when you are socially connected, you're not online too much, you have a job, you have a family, because it's deeper than just having a family and a few friends. It's this unbridgeable gap that you feel between you and another person, even when you genuinely love each other. And that's why this kind of loneliness is so hard. So here are 6 tools. If any of this is resonating with you, here are 6 tools that have really helped me and help others be able to make peace with existential loneliness. The first tool is usually where I start with people, which is learning how to fall in love with your own company and feel like you're in a room with interesting people when you're in a room by yourself. And this took time, but it's a skill that I've developed that I've gotten better at. So learning to love your own company is often one of the most healing and empowering things that you can do. And it starts with shifting from judgment to curiosity. So most of us avoid being alone because our inner world feels either hostile or hollow. But what if solitude wasn't a punishment, but an invitation? So when you approach yourself not as a problem to fix, and you kind of get out of your neurotic kind of thinking and instead look at yourself as a mystery to explore, being alone can be something not only interesting, but even sacred. And so you have to get curious about your thoughts. Where did this thought come from? You have to get curious about your feelings and your habits and your contradictions. So instead of saying, why am I like this? We start asking, where did this come from? What is the part of me that's showing up here? What is the part of me that's trying to protect me here? And that shift alone can open up an entirely new kind of relationship with yourself. So one of the most powerful ways to build this relationship is through inner child work. You're reconnecting with the kid you once were, the one who danced without shame and cried without apology, hopefully if you had a non-traumatic childhood. For some who had more traumatic childhoods, you actually have to go back and allow yourself to finish being a child. But you used to maybe believe that the world was full of possibility, and that can soften your edges and reconnect you with joy. And so you can ask yourself, what did you love as a child? What did you need? What did you daydream about? And then start to give yourself those things now. Let your inner child pick the playlist or the cereal or the park. Your inner child isn't immature. They're the gatekeeper of your sense of being alive. This last week I took my kids to the Scholastic Book Fair, even though it doesn't really do much for them because they've been surrounded by books, and not only library books, but I have a pretty big child library in my house, so it's not a big deal to them. But I took my inner child to that Scholastic Fair because we were too poor to be able to buy a pencil and a book when all my friends did, and so I got to take myself. And even if my kids weren't there, I still would have enjoyed just taking myself because it's an experience that I was giving then myself. And so as you start to spend more time with yourself, you can notice these kinds of emotional patterns like a gentle observer. Feelings then are not problems, they're data. You can start tracking your emotional weather, learn how sadness shows up in your body, pay attention to how certain people or situations trigger you. And this kind of emotional self awareness makes solitude dynamic instead of dull. You stop running from your emotions and start forming a kind of intimacy with yourself. You can start investigating your motivations and behaviors like a detective. Why do you keep saying yes when you want to say no? Why does that one comment always sting? The goal isn't to fix everything, it's to become fascinated by your own psyche. You're not boring. You're a very complex, evolving person with layers worth uncovering. And this mindset turns time alone into this rich landscape for self discovery. And most importantly, you can learn how to treat yourself with ritual and reverence. Light a candle when you journal, make a solo meal that feels intentional, go on a walk and talk to yourself like you're catching up with an old friend. Being alone doesn't have to feel like waiting for a distraction. It can be the main event. In fact, when you finally learn to enjoy your own company, you realize it was never loneliness. It was the beginning of intimacy with the only person who's ever been with you in every moment of your life, which is you. So do I always do this? No, but in a good headspace, what this feels like to me is a boardroom, and all of my thoughts are there, and my feelings and my rationality and my ideas and my motivations and my wounds and my previous selves and my shadow self and my resonances, and they all have information and they all have something to say, and they all get hurt sometimes and they all get mad sometimes. And when I watch myself, I can get curious for why I'm quiet when I'm around my mom, but I'm more extroverted when I'm around my dad. And when I go into mom mode, what that looks like, and when I hit my social battery, the end of my social battery, or why I go into eldest daughter mode with my brother, why that comment on Instagram hurt my feelings and others didn't. It's like a reality TV show in there where all kinds of drama and pain and hope and new information is happening all the time. And sometimes I'll learn something new about myself. I'll explore some new personality type model, or I'll hear a podcast, or right now I'm having a recurring dream that's happening over and over that I'm trying to decipher. And now this empty room is a fascinating place to be. And when I want someone to be proud of me, I'm proud of me. When I want someone to have my back, I do that. And when I need someone to witness, I do that. And when I need a dancing partner, I do that. And you learn how the universe within is a place of endless exploration, that you'll never fully understand yourself. There's always new territory to explore and integrate. And you learn how to watch yourself in a way that we almost projected out onto God. We wanted God to tell us that he was proud of us, or to witness us, or to comfort us, or to be there. And I can genuinely say that now in my life, I need God less because I became that person. I became the person who was interested in the mystery and complexity of this meat suit in this tiny corner of the universe. And then I just learned how to love my own company and be interested in my own company more and more. And that's helped me a lot. So second tool is now learning how to be alone together, which is through vulnerability and the slow art of letting yourself be seen. So existential loneliness can feel especially sharp when we're around people, but we still feel unknown. We still feel like we're just playing a game or wearing a mask. And that's because being in a room with others doesn't touch the ache of being seen, right? You can be partnered, you can be social, you can be popular, and you can still be starved for real connection if you're never offering your inner world to anyone else. And vulnerability is our best antidote for that. Not just sharing your pain, but letting someone see your joy and your weirdness and your questions and your contradictions. And it's slow work because we've been taught to hide our true selves in order to stay safe or stay loved. But when you find someone you can be real with, even in small doses, that ache really softens. And you don't need you don't need big groups to be able to practice this. Vulnerability can begin in really low stakes spaces. A comment on a post that's more honest than usual because it's a private Facebook group, a voice note to a friend where you say how you really feel, being in a therapist session where you're not performing. Every time you reveal instead of conceal, you chip away at this illusion of separateness. And because existential loneliness wants us to believe that we're in these isolated universes spinning silently, but vulnerability is going to be the bridge that can connect us. And the more you let yourself be seen, the more likely that there's someone out there that goes, oh, me too. And those little moments can change everything. What this looked like for me personally was taking social risks, saying what I actually thought, saying to women, hey, I'm really struggling in motherhood and it's not what I thought it was. And hearing me too and getting to bond in that moment because we were both able to take our mask off. Wearing what I wanted, showing up to parties in sweatpants because that felt authentic to me as a teenager. I always wore tapered soccer pants, and to this day, that's what I want to wear. And 99 out of 100 people think I'm an absolute weirdo and that my job is weird and that I'm weird. And that statistic, it's probably more than that. But I found a few people that wanted to take their mask off too. And we're just waiting for someone else to. And those few people can handle me at my most naked and also want to be at their most naked. That sounds very sexual. It's not an orgy, but we really can talk about our real thoughts about everything. And it was work to get 99 no's, to get one yes, I'd love to have coffee with you. So for me, I really focused on this idea of like, hey, I'm going to die. And if I'm going to die, I'm going to live more maskless and really be honest so that I can have more honest relationships. I didn't know if it would work, but I was shocked to find how many people I have in my life now that really I have a friendship bond with. And that's shocking to me because I was an absolute loser in high school. And now I have more friends than I have time for, because many more people around you want honest conversation than you realize. We're all just waiting for someone to let the side down. So all of that is vulnerability work, and we just do that a little bit at a time. Next one is creative expression, learning how to use your aliveness to make something that didn't exist before. So when we're faced with the deep void of existential loneliness, creativity becomes this act of sacred defiance. You take the chaos and complexity inside of you and you shape it into something: music, painting, poetry, movement, humor, meaning. You make meaning not by solving anything, but by expressing what you are in this complex moment. It's not about being good at it either. You can finger paint your grief or make memes about heartbreak or write letters to your future self. It's an act of creating that gives your inner world a voice. And when you make something honest, it kind of echoes across the silence and it allows other people to also resonate with you. So creative expression can be an offering to the world, or it can just be an expression of your own inner world. And it just kind of externalizes the invisible. It says, this is what it feels like to be me right now. And often when you share what you've made, whether that's on a public stage or in a notebook, you realize that you're not as alone as you thought, that the loneliness lessens not because someone fixed it for you, but because you gave it shape. And in doing so, the loneliness kind of softens for a moment. For me, that looks like what I'm doing here on YouTube right now or on TikTok. It's very much a journal of what I'm thinking about that day. There are probably a few sentences I've said that captured what I feel, and it's a combination of words that have never been said before in that combination by any other human. And there's something intrinsically valuable in that expression, even if no one resonated with it, even though most people think I'm weird. But I find that some people do. Some people do resonate with some sentences that I've weaved with my words. It's my way of saying I'm here, and it's a way for others to also maybe resonate with what I'm creating too. And then we start to creatively express and witness each other as we see each other's expressions. There's something about that that's really beautiful. Number 4 is one of the deepest roots of existential loneliness is the sense of being a separate self, cut off from others, cut off from the planet, cut off from everyone. And so psychedelics is going to be my tool number 4. Psychedelics, particularly psilocybin and MDMA, even in combination with each other in therapeutic or ceremonial settings. Don't ask me questions. I live in Idaho. But I'll just talk about this generally, but they do have a way of dissolving those ego boundaries and reminding you that separateness is somewhat of an illusion. So in those moments, people will report feeling profoundly connected to nature, to the universe, to other people, to the child inside them, to ancestors, not as a metaphor, but as a kind of dropping of the illusion. So something to note here, though, psychedelics don't create meaning. They just drop your ego for a little bit. They drop the illusion of separateness that can give you then a sense of interconnection, where you realize that there's always been a thread between you and everything else. And sometimes that single experience by itself is enough to shatter the illusion of isolation that you've carried for years. And studies back this up, that psychedelic experiences, when paired with preparation and integration, can significantly reduce feelings of disconnection, depression, death anxiety, existential loneliness. But the medicine isn't just in the trip, it's what you do with it afterward. And if you're willing to take what you saw in that state and weave it into your everyday life, it can become this relationship to awe and connection and compassion and to something sacred. You begin to live your life as if you're not alone, because you realize that you are connected to everything else. So I've had journeys, let's say, where I could see the faces of my ancestors in my face when you look at a mirror. I've seen people name trees. I've seen people drop their ego and resentment and connect to their partners, even when their partner isn't there. I've seen people connect to archetypes, the archetype of the feminine or the masculine or the warrior or the mother or Mother Earth. I've seen people become storytellers or connect to music or connect to their body. Sometimes our loneliness just comes from an illusion that we're a separate thing because our ego feels like that, when really we are deeply entwined in nature and the human story deep into our bones. And we can lift that veil of illusion with psychedelics. Doing this with other people, where everyone's sharing their experience when their ego is offline, is one way to very quickly develop deep bonds in a very short amount of time. So if that's something that you're able to find around you in a safe way, with a guide that you trust, with people that you trust, it's something that can be very healing for people. Number 5 is contribution, offering your life as a thread in a wider tapestry of existence. So when the ache of existential loneliness sets in, it can feel like your presence in the world is meaningless, that you could just vanish and nothing would change. But something begins to shift when you realize that you are a carrier of meaning, that by showing up, offering care, doing something that eases another's pain or expands their joy, you become part of a story that's greater than you. So contribution doesn't have to be grand or public. Sometimes it's holding space for someone else's truth. It's saying something that helps someone feel seen. It's planting a tree you'll never sit under. It's showing up with gentleness even when the world has been harsh to you. These moments ripple, they linger, not just in memory, but in the way someone walks around the world afterward, how they parent, how they speak to themselves, how they love. You become part of that. Your life is not a closed loop. It is a tapestry. And so existential psychologist Irvin Yalom talks about this rippling effect, the idea that we gain peace not by escaping death, but by knowing that a part of us continues in the human story. And that what we've done, how we've loved, what we've stood for, what we've stood against, these things endure. And contribution is how we participate in that. It's not legacy as an ego project that people are always going to remember me. That's an ego project. It's legacy as connection, that you're not just passing through, that you're helping to shape the world in what it should have been, because it's not. And something beautiful happens in that exchange, that the pain of your loneliness begins to soften, not because you're burying it, but because you've repurposed it. You've alchemized your own longing into presence somewhere in the world. You've turned the isolation into a bridge. And in reaching out to lighten someone else's load, we often find, even science shows, that we lighten our own. So the loneliness of my nihilism has transformed into this beautiful but painful calling of sitting with people in their darkest moments and being the person that I needed at that time. And there's something that even decreases my own loneliness in those moments, because it's not just me and my neurotic suffering. It's a part part of a movement of people that left religion, of people that face the death of God, of people that face nihilism, that are trying to rebuild. And I'm a tiny, tiny, tiny part of that. And there are projects and people and conversations and things to hold or witness as part of that thing that I'm a part of that's bigger than me. And that can help. And then the last one is storytelling, learning to tell your own story. And I just did a big video on this and developed a full course on how to better tell your story. But when you're really intentionally writing your life as a character within it, that can become a journey that makes you less lonely because you're witnessing yourself as a part of a story. Existential loneliness often comes from the sense that you're floating, unanchored through life, untethered from meaning, misunderstood, miscast. But when you begin to tell your story, not just the events of your life, but the meaning that you make out of them, you start to weave coherence where there was once chaos. You start to inhabit your life as the main character, or as the kids say, like main character energy, do it for the plot. I think there's some wisdom behind that. And that changes everything because we're storytelling creatures. It's always how we've made sense of suffering, identity, time, change. And if you're in the middle of something painful or uncertain and it can feel like things don't make sense or it feels meaningless or random, stories don't need to have happy endings to be meaningful. They need story arcs, they need themes, they need movements. And so when you can reflect on your life as a narrative, you start to see the chapters that shaped you, the turning points, the motifs that repeat themselves. You can start to see the you that's emerging from the story, not despite the pain, but often because of it. So telling your story out loud, in writing, through art, even just in the privacy of your own thoughts, it isn't just expression, it's integrating. It's all these scattered moments that start to align together to become a coherent self that you are creating while witnessing your creation. And as you tell your story, you begin to feel less like an isolated dot and more like a thread, part of something larger. Your past, your future, others' lives will weave in and out of that story. And people will recognize themselves in your story, and you recognize yourself in their story. And then that's a way that the loneliness can become connection. And here's the deeper magic. When you place your life inside of a story, you get to live into it. You get to ask, what kind of character do I want to be in this next chapter? You're not doomed to be just this passive recipient of fate. You're in motion. Your choices matter. Your voice matters. You become someone who is becoming. So existential pain comes from not knowing how to fit yourself in the world, how to make it all mean something. But storytelling is a way to say, I was here. This is who I am. This is what shaped me. This is what I'm choosing to do with it. It's self-witnessing. It's meaning making. It's myth making. And it can be a step towards belonging to yourself, to your own life, and to the greater human story of what we're all writing together. So, am I still lonely sometimes? Yes. No one fully understands what's going on in my head, the battles that I'm fighting in there, the battles that I've survived. But I've learned better how to be fascinated in a room by myself. I've learned how to take social risks and find a few people to do life with. I've done psychedelics with people that I will forever be connected to in a deep way. I express myself through writing and putting it on YouTube, which is what I'm doing right now. I try to contribute to something bigger than myself for connection. And I know the story and character that I'm writing in my own life, and I'm intentionally writing that story. And all of that made it so that I could be okay, even though I'm still in many ways alone. So I'm going to end this session with emotion rather than some rational argument. I can't play the song or it will get flagged on YouTube, but I just want to invite you, if you've made it to the end of this, it's probably because you're feeling lonely. And so I just want you to sit with me for a moment. And I'm going to share some lyrics of a song that reminds me, like the lyrics of this song and the mood of the song perfectly illustrate my loneliness. And if I'm feeling lonely and I want to dive into that feeling and kind of cry it out, this is the song that I return to. And so I just want to invite you to feel these lyrics, feel your loneliness too. We're going to face it. We're not going to hide away from it. We're going to face it. And for a brief moment, let's face it and feel it and be alone together. And this comes from the end of Phantom of the Opera, the one with Gerard Butler. And this is the credit song that Minnie Driver sings. And I can't, the song is so beautiful and such a sad song that I actually hope you stop this video, or at the end of this video, you go look up this song and just listen to it and just feel the ways that you're feeling lonely. Because I'm lonely too, and no one else is quite like me, but you can learn to be lonely and we can find ways to be alone together. I wish I had a better pill to offer than that. Sometimes I wish there was a God that witnessed and saw everything that I've gone through, someone that could say, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you did. I'm proud of what you survived. But since I've never been able to really find that God, I've tried to become that person for myself. So here are the lyrics. Child of the wilderness, born into emptiness, learn to be lonely. Learn to find your way in darkness. Who will be there for you? Comfort and care for you. Learn to be lonely. Learn to be your one companion. Never dreamed out in the world there are arms to hold you. You've always known your heart was on its own. So laugh in your loneliness, child of the wilderness. Learn to be lonely. Learn how to love life that is lived alone. Learn to be lonely. Life can be lived. Life can be loved alone. I'm lonely too. No one else is quite like me. But I've made peace with learning how to be lonely and how to even enjoy life witnessing myself. And there are moments of deep connection where I find that we can be alone together in ways where we can see and witness each other and also be seen. And those moments are incredibly sacred to me. And I hope these tools help you to not only be able to learn how to love to be lonely in yourself and learn how to love your own company, but also take some risks to be able to be alone with other people who want to see your full humanity and want to show you theirs too. So I hope that helped. That was kind of just feeling some feelings at the end of that. But it's the best that I've been able to find that isn't just empty calories of promise of soulmates and promise of gods. This is the best that I've been able to find. And I can't say anymore that I'm not lonely. I can just say that I've made deep peace with it and I have found others to be alone with. And I hope that I can be that person with you too, because if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, then perhaps in some ways you feel like me too. Much love from me.